Hi and welcome to the 64 Doors. Today we're going to open door 15. Here we find a wild woman, and this is an archetype with a very powerful aura. When people come into her aura, they're going to be in flow and synchronicity with this aura, which is also in sync with the aura of the world, the Schumann resonance. We're going to look at this archetype from a human design perspective and a Jinki perspective. So right now we find the sun in gate 15 on the cusp between Gemini and Cancer. And the programming partner, the Earth, is in gate 10 and also between Sagittarius and Capricorn. And the same thing is going to happen with the design part of the cross. It's really in two signs. So we have basically 8 different astrological signs in this incarnation cross, and we have the gate 46 and the gate 25. And you can see that all these gates are coming out of the G center that has to do with love, direction, and identity. This is one of 2 different crosses that completely come out from the G center. So one is the cross of the vessel of love, which is this one, and the other one is the cross of the Sphinx. When we explain them from a human design perspective, we're going to see that there are 3 different possibilities of crosses that starts where they have the sun in the 15th gate. And the first one is the one that I was just speaking about, and it says, born as a vessel of love, you're here to bring people into the flow in a loving way. All 4 of the gates of your cross are connected to the G center, and on a deeper level have a connection to the soul. Love of spirit, love of the flesh, love of the self, and love of humanity are the 4 energies that make up this cross. With the energy of this cross, humanity leads the way for you. This is about getting people into the flow of love for themselves, each other, and love of humanity. That's beautiful. And you see that in the other 2 crosses, instead of having the 25 and the 46, on the design side, we have the 17 and the 18. So this is about farsightedness, about really seeing the big picture, and the 18 is about living in integrity and walking that integrity. So it's a little bit different. It's the cross of extremes and the cross of prevention. And if you have these crosses, of course, go back, read more about them. You can also make your gene key chart, and you're going to have a paragraph on each one of these 4 gene keys written out on that report. So that's a good way of learning more deeply about each gate or each gene key. When we look here, like we said, we have the 15 that comes from the G center, and it's going to connect with the 5th gate in the sacral center. So looking at the circuitry, this is a channel of rhythm, a design of a being in flow. And the quick reference theme is you're a very magnetic person. You'll pull everyone you meet into your own natural rhythm. If the world seems chaotic, it is because you are. If you are in the flow, everything you do is effortless. So this is the wild woman, you could say she has a lot of different expressions, and it can even look very extreme sometimes. But it's all about flow, and it's all about the naturalness of what it is to be alive. And we're going to see more about what elements that are making up this gate in the I Ching when we look at the gene key part, and then you're going to understand more where it comes from. And it's the gate of extremes, modesty, people with a need to adjust and adapt their rhythm to changing circumstances. So again, it's the change that is there all the time. The I Ching is the book of changes, right? So it's really kind of speaking about that inherent change or evolution that we have in this reality. And you can see, the big aura and the animal magnetism, the planetary aura. So that's some of the keywords here. And you could say that the 15, that's interesting, it says rhythm regulator. And when we go back and we see where it comes from, you see, well, the G center is not about energy. It's about identity, direction, and love. So the energy comes from the sacral center. That's the pulse or the rhythm. But what regulates is this the inherent knowing from the G center. So that's why it's a very interesting. It's a tantric channel too, actually, and it's very powerful. That's when other people come into this aura. It's going to influence them to go into the same rhythm. Um, Similarly in how it would be with humanity on Earth, but we are creating so much synthetic, so many synthetic rhythms and vibrations, and think about 5G and electricity and all the things that we're creating, so that it's kind of the voice of that, or the power of that somehow for us on a daily basis might be stronger than actually feeling into the Schumann resonance. And that's where I feel also a lot we can go into those lower frequencies of extremes, whether it's dullness or kind of being erratic and extreme in that way. And let's go into the gene keys right away to look at that. So we have empty or extremist is and the narrow-mindedness. That's the shadow patterns. And you can go into the 64 doors and read about them more, or you can, of course, also read about them in the Gene Key book. And that's the thing. There's always a repressive when you kind of internalize it, and then it's going to feel out of sync, and it's going to feel dull or empty. And in the reactive expression, it's going to go in all kinds of direction. And when we look at the here, dullness, another day in hell. So it can either be like nothing happens, everything is dead, or too much happening because we're kind of running away. We want to run away from that dullness. That's really how the shadow frequency work. And then the Schumann, hitting the Schumann resonance, the magnetism, coming back into that synchronicity with everything that is alive on Earth, because everything is connected, that kind of oneness. And then fluorescence is the highest frequency. And the programming partner is the 10th gene key, self-obsession, naturalness, and being. So magnetism and naturalness is just the natural way that humanity and Mother Earth are supposed to be in sync with each other, and are if we don't put on a rhythm that isn't natural. And part of that comes from that self-obsession or the self-serving agenda instead of the whole serving agenda, right? What I also feel is super, super interesting with this gate is that it's part of the codon ring of seeking. And I even want to read a little bit about the codon ring here. So the ring of seeking, this codon ring is the great pressure codon inside the human DNA. Each one of the 6 gene keys within this group drives an aspect of human evolutionary movement. In the shadow frequency, this pressure creates stress and fear. In the higher frequencies, this pressure generates creativity and aspiration to rise up to greater spiritual awakening. So really super interesting. And we're soon going to be in the 39 and the 52. We've already been in the 54 earlier this year, and I think the 58 as well in the beginning of the year. So really go into those doors, in the 64 doors, and read about them and understand the different kind of pressure we have in each one of these gene keys. I think it's one of the most interesting of the codon rings, actually. And then astrology, like I said, very interesting. We have 8 different astrological signs here. So we still have the Gemini, the mutable air, the curiosity, the play, but we're going into Cancer, the nurturer, the life bringer, the caregiver, caring, communion, and it's really service to other through the caring waters of unconditional love. And here we have service to spirit. So you can see it's powerful too, because it has those 2 sides, even in astrological terms. And the individual human design is actually called lifelessness. It's still the channel of rhythm, but lifelessness. So that's when that rhythm, that connection, the tantric connection between the sacral center and the G center, when that is out of sync, life cannot move. And life force, like the more dense energy, cannot be sublimated, cannot be circulated up to the heart. So that creates that lifelessness. You can also go to Jane Addams' blog to look at the animals, because she's painting them every week. So I would absolutely say that. The mudra, you can buy the library here, when Richard has a 1 minute video for each, or Jane is also painting the mudra for every gene key. And the I Ching is the last thing I wanted to go into. So here we have earth over mountain. And from earth, like we know, is the prime yin. It's the very, very feminine. And that's also connected with this wild woman. So that's the basis. But then we have earth over mountain. And we could think that that 52, like mountain over mountain is the 52, the still point, that is so still, and earth is so still too. But if we think about the shadow frequencies, earth or the second jinki is lost, dislocated. And the 52 is about stress. So that's the thing, when the feminine goes into stress and feeling lost, then it can be very extreme or even very dead, because she can't create from that place. So she becomes out of sync, and kind of nothing can grow, nothing can get born. In the I Ching it says, softly uncover the blossoming heart held in the womb of Mother Earth. So very feminine. That's the reason for why we chose this name, and receiving appreciation. And here you see dullness is dislocated stress, magnetism is orientation with restraints, and fluorescence is unified stillness. So beautiful. Wow. Yeah, I do think that's kind of everything that I wanted to say in the Living Library. So this week, I would say, look at the wild woman inside of you. And I always say that we all have a feminine inside of us and a masculine. We are built of those polarities, so alpha and omega, or yin and yang. So look at that wild woman, and is she in stillness? Is she in orientation, or is she stressed and lost? Because that's going to make the way that you show up in the world. Like if your feminine is not balanced, your masculine is not going to be balanced. So look at that wild woman inside of you and ask her, is she in harmony? Is her aura, is it contagious in that sense that people come into it and it feels harmonious, it feels in sync? That's especially knowing that 70% of humanity we are generators, either pure generators or manifesting generators, and we have a very big cloud around us, an aura, and the not self things frustration. So when we are not in sync, that's the kind of cloud that we're walking around in, and that kind of cloud that we are also between people is going to have that. So it is, I feel it's important to look at that this week, about are you in sync, are you in rhythm, do you feel like you're in flow? And some of the things that I've written down too. I think also here it's about role modeling. Like, do you know somebody that has that magnetism that is just like go into a room and you everybody feels the presence, and a positive presence, a role modeling presence. And a good week too to go out in nature. The human resonance, like I was saying in the beginning, there's so much distraction out there. There's so many different kinds of synthetic currents, whether it's electricity or Wi-Fi, or so to go back into the water, into the earth, into the elements, and feel that. And then often we just feel so much calmer, and everything can be so much more in flow when we come back into a more synthetic way of living, maybe in our everyday life. And also, this is the gate of the love of humanity. So how are you contributing? How do you even feel? Have you ever even thought about the love of humanity? Or are you more about maybe the 10th jinki is more about the self, right? So how can you it is a week to have one of those act for humanity. And I can see also in what's going on currently with a lot of the demonstrations and people waking up about inequalities. It is really in the time now to kind of stand up as humanity and look at direction, which is also the second jinki, which is part of the elemental expression of this 15. So I'm wishing everybody a great week, and I will see you back in the next transit. Thank you.